Hey, happy Monday, everybody. This is your buddy Carl with the daily Bible reading. Here we are, January 20th, 20 of 2020. Interesting. So there you go. We're going to dive right in. So today's reading is still in Genesis. This is the cool thing. You get a whole year to get through all of this. It would be a large undertaking to try to hit it in a short amount of time, which some people do. But anyway, we're staying with the 1 year through the Bible, and I'm here at the home office. So here we go. We're going to get right into it. January the 20th, Genesis 41, starting at verse 17. And this is where, Joseph is in Egypt working for Potiphar, and then he's been in jail because Potiphar's wife lied about him. And then, he's going to go to work for Pharaoh here soon. So let's pick it up here at Genesis 41, verse 17. So Pharaoh told Joseph his dream. In my dream, he said, I was standing on the bank of the Nile, and I saw 7 fat, healthy cows coming up out of the river and begin grazing in the marsh grass. But then I saw 7 sick-looking cows, scrawny and thin, come up after them. And I've never seen such sorry-looking animals in all the land of Egypt. These thin, scrawny cows ate the 7 fat cows, but afterward you wouldn't have known it, for they were still as thin and scrawny as before. And then I woke up. Then I fell asleep again, and I had another dream. This time I saw 7 heads of grain, and full and beautiful, growing in a single stalk. Then 7 more heads of grain appeared, but these were blighted, shriveled, and withered by the east wind. And with the shriveled heads swallowed the 7 healthy heads. I told these dreams to the magicians, but no one could tell me what they mean. As Joseph responded, both of Pharaoh's dreams mean this. So here we go. Joseph responded. He's saying this to Pharaoh. Both of Pharaoh's dreams mean the same thing. God is telling Pharaoh in advance what he's about to do. Now, isn't this interesting? This is Joseph's way, a man of God, to encourage probably an unbeliever, definitely worshiping many gods, or he thinks he's God. Many Egyptian leaders thought of themselves as gods. But Joseph is emphasizing the idea to bless him, to say, God is speaking to you in your dreams. I think that's beautiful. So God's telling Pharaoh in advance what he's about to do. The seven healthy cows and 7 healthy heads of grain both represent 7 years of prosperity. The 7 thin, scrawny cows that came up later and the 7 thin heads of grain withered by the east wind represent 7 years of famine. This will happen, just as I have described it, for God has revealed it to Pharaoh in advance while what he is about to do. The next 7 years will be a period of great prosperity throughout the land of Egypt, but afterward there will be 7 years of famine so great that all the prosperity will be forgotten in Egypt. Famine will destroy the land. This famine will be so severe that even the memory of the good years will be erased. As for having 2 similar dreams, it means that these events have been decreed by God. Interesting there. I try to remember that. Do we still hear God in dreams? Absolutely. It's good to kind of note what happens in your mind at night. I'll put this as a side note. Keep a journal if you're a dreamer, and ask the Lord. Ask somebody that understands dreams by the Spirit of God. Not definitely, I think it's unbiblical to see, anything else beyond the Lord, because there's a lot of things going on in the Spirit. As a side note, it's important not to go see fortune tellers, palm readers, things like that. And you may think, oh, Carl, come on, it's just fun. No, it's not fun. It is funny in a weird way. What it is, it's a deception. And the enemy, the devil, yes, likes to deceive people, thinking, well, it's just kind of like, fun to explore our dreams and our thoughts, or to hear what maybe some humanistic, mystical thinker would think of these things. Don't buy that, folks. It's really, there is, you don't have to be, moving around petrified with fear, but use wisdom. There is wisdom to seek God's way of things that are supernatural and spiritual. And they are real things. As much the scriptures later on, as you would read, it says the real realm, the physical real realm is something we see, but the spirit realm is as important or as real or more so than what we feel right here. That's scriptural. I believe that to be true. And not just because I believe it. I think people even would admit, anybody, atheist or anything, realize there's a emotional, spiritual, energetic, cosmic thing to the way humans are built. I believe that's the Lord. That's the spirit realm, and it's really, the Lord's world or the enemy's world, depending on who you allow to be in charge of that. So, little side note, because this is what's happening with Pharaoh and Joseph here. So, this is decreed by God, and he will soon make them happen. Verse 33, therefore Pharaoh should find an intelligent and wise man and put him in charge of the entire land of Egypt. Well, then Pharaoh should appoint supervisors over the land and let them collect 1/5 of all the crops during the 7 good years. Have them gather all the food produced in the good years that are just ahead and bring it to Pharaoh's storehouses. Store it away and guard it so there will be food in the cities. That way there will be enough to eat when the 7 years of famine come to the land of Egypt. Otherwise, this famine will destroy the land. Amazing wisdom from the heart of God through Joseph to help a secular leader know what needs to be done. And the fact that Pharaoh had enough insight and wisdom to take heed and listen. Joseph's suggestions were well received by Pharaoh and his officials. So Pharaoh asked his officials, can we find anyone else like this man? So obviously filled with the Spirit of God. Wow. Pharaoh recognizes the Spirit of God in Joseph. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has revealed the meaning of these dreams to you, clearly no one else is as intelligent or wise as you are. You will be in charge of my court, and all my people will take orders from you. Only I, sitting on my throne, will have a rank higher than yours. Man, oh man, this is like the president, and now there's the vice president. This is Pharaoh, who sees himself as a lord, and his council, his closest council. Amazing. That's a long way. He goes from prison now to be second in command. Stunning. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the entire land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh removed his signet ring from his hand and placed it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in fine linen clothing and hung a gold chain around his neck. Then he had Joseph ride in the chariot reserved for his second in command, and wherever Joseph went, the command was shouted, kneel down. So Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of all of Egypt, and Pharaoh said to him, I am Pharaoh, but no one will lift a hand or foot in the entire land of Egypt without your approval. Then Pharaoh gave Joseph a new Egyptian name, Zephanath-Paneah. He also gave him a wife, whose name was Asenath. She was the daughter of Potiphar, the priest of On. How about that? Potiphar's wife, who was bad, had a daughter, and now the daughter goes to Joseph. Woo! So Joseph took charge of the entire land of Egypt. He was 30 years old. Young people hear this. 30 years old. The wisdom of God on young people is an amazing thing when you're submitted to the Lord. Wow. 30 years old when he began serving in the court of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And when Joseph left Pharaoh's presence, he inspected the entire land of Egypt. So he immediately goes to work with his duty. As predicted, for 7 years, the land produced bumper crops. During those years, Joseph gathered all the crops grown in Egypt and stored the grain from the surrounding fields in the cities. He piled up huge amounts of grain like sand on the seashore. Finally, he stopped keeping records because there was too much to measure. Imagine that prosperity. There's so much abundance in the land for 7 years, but God's preparing them. During this time, before the first of the famine years, 2 sons were born to Joseph and his wife, Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, the priest of On. Joseph named his older son Manasseh, for he said, God has made me forget all my troubles and everyone in my father's family. Joseph named his second son Ephraim, for he said, God has made me fruitful in this land of my grief. At last the 7 years of bumper crops throughout the land of Egypt came to an end. The 7 years of famine began, and Joseph, just as Joseph had predicted. The famine also struck all the surrounding countries, but throughout Egypt there was plenty of food. Eventually, however, the famine spread throughout the land of Egypt as well, and when the people cried out to Pharaoh for food, he told them, go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you. So with the severe famine everywhere, Joseph opened up the storehouses and distributed grain to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe throughout the land of Egypt, and people from all around came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph because the famine was severe throughout the world. Today's reading 20, we go all the way to 42:17. So we are going to finish up there. Here we are, chapter 42 in Genesis. When Jacob heard that grain was available in Egypt, so this is Joseph's father. Now it has reached that far. Now his family's getting hit. Why are you standing around looking at one another? I have heard there's grain in Egypt, he tells his sons. Go down there and buy enough grain to keep us alive, otherwise we'll die. That's bad. That's how bad it was. So Joseph's 10 older brothers went down to Egypt to buy grain, but Jacob wouldn't let Joseph's younger brother Benjamin, go with them, for fear some harm might come to him. So Jacob's sons arrived in Egypt along with others to buy food, for the famine was in Canaan as well. Since Joseph was governor of all Egypt and in charge of selling grain to all the people, it was to him that his brothers came. When they arrived, they bowed before him with their faces to the ground. Remember the dream, the grains bowing before Joseph's grain, right? That was Joseph's dream coming to pass right there after all this time. Joseph recognized his brothers instantly, but he pretended to be a stranger and spoke harshly to them. Now you imagine how Joseph has changed. He's older. He looks like an Egyptian. He didn't look like the young boy, their young brother, after all this time. Where are you from? He demanded. From the land of Canaan, they replied. We have come to buy food. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they didn't recognize him, and he remembered the dreams that he'd had about them many years before. He said to them, you are spies. You have come to see how vulnerable our land has become. They're like, no, my lord. They exclaimed, your servants have simply come to buy food. We're all brothers, members of the same family. We are honest men. Sir, we are not spies. Yes, you are, Joseph insisted. You have come to see how vulnerable our land has become. Sir, they said, there are actually 12 of us. We, your servants, are all brothers, sons of a man living in the land of Canaan. Our youngest brother is back there with our father right now, and one of our brothers is no longer with us. Interesting. But Joseph insisted, as I said, you are spies. This is how I will test your story. I swear by the life of Pharaoh that you will never leave Egypt unless your youngest brother comes here. One of you must go and get your brother. I'll keep the rest of you here in prison. Then we'll find out whether or not your story is true. Oh my goodness. By the life of Pharaoh, if it turns out that you don't have a younger brother, then I'll know you are spies. So Joseph put them all in prison for 3 days. There you go. There's a vision of 3 days. On the third day, Joseph said to them, I am a God-fearing man. If you do as I say, you will live. If you really are honest men, choose one of your brothers to remain in prison. The rest of you may go home with grain for your starving families. But you must bring your youngest brother back to me. This will prove that you are telling the truth, and you will not die. To this they agreed. I know I finished out there at verse 20. Why they wanted to stop at 17, don't know. But we're going to stop there. That's the reading for today, the story of Joseph and his brothers. Amazing. Okay, today's psalm reading, Psalm 18, just verses 1 through 15. So let's take a look at this. Psalm 18. I love you, Lord. You are my strength. This is David. Again, David, such an amazing man. Heart after God, had this amazing life, picked as a king out of all of his brothers later. We'll see these stories unfold over time. But this is from David, and it says here for the choir director, by the way, a psalm of David, the servant of the Lord. He sang this song to the Lord on the day the Lord rescued him from all his enemies and from Saul, which was the king trying to kill him. Another story we will see unfold. But this was meant to be sung, actually, and I won't try to do that. I love you, Lord. You are my strength. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my Savior. My God is my rock, in whom I find protection. He is my shield, the power that saves me, and my place of safety. I called on the Lord, who is worthy of praise, and he saved me from my enemies. The ropes of death entangled me, floods of destruction swept over me. The grave wrapped its ropes around me, death laid a trap in my path. But in my distress, I cried out to the Lord. Folks, so many times when we read Psalms, you got to read the whole thing because there's always this, grief and things that happen and horrors and whatever trials, tribulation of every human being. And there's always this place of the psalmist normally where it's like, but yes, in my distress, I cried to the Lord. Yes, I prayed to my God for help. He heard me from his sanctuary. My cry to him reached his ears. And then the earth quaked and trembled. The foundations of the mountain shook. They quaked because of his anger. Smoke poured from his nostrils. Fierce flames leaped from his mouth. Glowing coals blazed forth from him. He opened the heavens and came down. Dark storm clouds were beneath his feet. Mounted on mighty angelic beings, he flew. Wow, what? Mounted on a mighty angelic being, he flew. What was David seeing in the Spirit? I don't believe he's being poetic. Maybe he was. Maybe he was having a dream or a vision as he was pouring this out. But how did he get the image of God riding on a mighty angelic being? That's stunning. Soaring on the wings of the wind, he shrouded himself in darkness, veiling his approach with dark rain clouds. Thick clouds shielded the brightness around him and rained down hail and burning coals. The Lord thundered from heaven. The voice of the Most High resounded amid the hail and burning coals. He shot his arrows and scattered his enemies. His lightning flashed, and they were greatly confused. Then at your command, O Lord, at the blast of your breath, the bottom of the sea could be seen, and the foundations of the earth were laid bare. Wow. That is stunning visionary stuff, folks. That's Psalm 18, verses 1 through 15. I will stop there because he's going to unpack a lot more as he's worshiping the Lord, thanking the Lord for his deliverance. Yes, it's a lot of poetry and imagery. Was Dave seeing a vision of how God functioned in the Spirit? We don't fully know, but the things that were being revealed by, some would say, his visionary prayers, or his divine imagination, which is really God reveals things in dreams and visions. So anyway, I won't unpack more of that. Let's go to the proverb for today. Proverbs today is we're starting on chapter 4, verses 1 through 6. A father's wise advice. My children, listen when your father corrects you. Pay attention and learn good judgment. Fathers, it's good to correct your children in kindness and with grace, and sometimes with sternness, but never with hate or anger or creating fear. Although our children should respect us and honor parents and authority, this is how it's done. Children admonishing are encouraging his children to listen. Listen when your father corrects you. Pay attention and learn good judgment, for I am giving you good advice. Don't turn away from my instructions, for I too was once my father's son, tenderly loved as my mother's only child. My father taught me. Take my words to heart. Follow my commands, and you will live. That's Proverbs 14, 1 through, we're going to go on down here to 6. Here he goes. He's referencing wisdom again. Get wisdom. Develop good judgment. Don't forget my words or turn away from them. Don't turn your back on wisdom, which is don't turn your back on the Lord. Good knowledge. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, for she will protect you. Love her and she will guard you. Getting wisdom is the wisest thing you can do. Gosh, I have a side note that says, yes, Lord, help me. Get wisdom. Be wise. The wise grow wiser still. No matter how old you are or young you are, you can keep learning throughout your whole life. We keep learning and growing. Getting wisdom is the wisest thing you can do. And whatever else you do, develop good judgment along with it. If you prize wisdom, she will make you great. Embrace her and she will honor you. Yes, Lord. She will place a lovely wreath on your head. She will present you with a beautiful crown. And I am going to stop there. Now I extended a little bit because the Father here is actually encouraging about growing in wisdom and understanding. Okay, we're moving on to the New Testament. Today it's Matthew chapter 13, starting up at 24 through 46. 13:24. So we've been in, Jesus had explained the parable of the seeds. Remember that? And now here we are at 24. Now this is a parable of the weeds. Here's another story Jesus told. The kingdom of heaven is like a farmer who planted good seed in his field. But that night, as the worker slept, his enemy, Satan, and if we think of this as God and Satan, the enemy came and planted weeds among the wheat, then slipped away. When the crop began to grow and produce grain, the weeds also grew. The farmer's workers went to him and said, "Sir, the field where you planted that good seed is full of weeds. Where did they come from?" "An enemy has done this," the farmer exclaimed. "Should we pull out the weeds?" they asked. "No," he replied, "you'll uproot the wheat if you do. Let both grow together until the harvest, and then I will tell the harvesters to sort out the weeds, tie them into bundles, and burn them, and put the wheat in the barn." Interesting. Jesus tells another parable. Gosh, I have to hint this. In our day, in New Testament life, in where Jesus has come, we're living in a different spiritual state. Because we see things happening in the earth like good and bad, like, Lord, why don't you do something? He's a good farmer. He's a good dad. He's letting people have all the chance they can. His heart is that everybody comes to know him through Jesus. So important. So he's letting these things happen in the earth, all these, and in the end, there will be a separation. So anyway, won't unpack that more, but that's what that parable is about. Jesus tells this parable of the mustard seed. Here's another illustration Jesus used. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed planted in a field. It is the smallest of all seeds, but it becomes the largest of garden plants. It grows into a tree, and birds come and make nest in its branches. Jesus also used this illustration. The kingdom of heaven is like the yeast a woman used in making bread, and even though she spent only a little yeast, or she only put a little yeast in 3 measures of flour, it permeated every part of the dough. Jesus always used stories and illustrations like these when speaking to the crowds. In fact, he never spoke to them without using such parables. This fulfilled what God had spoken through the prophet. "I will speak to you in parables. I will explain things hidden since the creation of the world." Then, leaving the crowds outside, Jesus went into the house, and his disciples said, "Please explain to us the story of the weeds in the field." Jesus replied, "The Son of Man is the farmer who plants the good seed." There you go. Jesus is telling him, I'm it. It's the Son of Man. I'm planting good seed. How about that? The field is the world, and the good seed represents the people of the kingdom. The weeds are the people who belong to the evil one. Didn't we just say that? The enemy who planted the weeds among the wheat is the devil. So there you are. The harvest is the end of the world, and the harvesters are the angels. Jesus can't be any clearer than what he means by this parable. And he's making it clear to his disciples and to us. So if we have ears to hear it, let's hear it. Just as the weeds are sorted out and burned in the fire, so it will be at the end of the world. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will remove from his kingdom everything that causes sin and all who do evil. And the angels will throw them into the fiery furnace where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in their Father's kingdom. Anyone with ears to hear should listen and understand. Wow, amazing stuff. If you read the whole counsel of Scripture, folks, as much as we know God is love, and I have to say this because we live in an age of really wishy-washy theology and understanding, Christians aren't happy about people suffering. We don't rejoice in God's judgments. That's a total secular thing, where the enemy wants to make believers look evil, like you want people to go to hell. Nobody wants that. God doesn't want that. It's just like, it's frightening. It's It's sobering, and that's what we live for, is to tell about the kingdom so people come to know. So that when seeds going out, the word, these things of Jesus, people come to know, because there will be a separation. Now, how separation looks, how hell looks, how, man, so much arguing over that. People, don't get trapped up in that. The idea is like, if it's a fiery furnace, if it's hellfire and brimstone, or if it's separation, or it's annihilation, you don't exist. Why is any of that a good option? There has to be a choosing. There has to be a choosing. I have to say that. Anyway, ponder that, and when opportunities come to share the goodness of God, do so. Matthew 13, and we're going to finish up here at 46. Man, all these parables about the kingdom. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure that a man discovered hidden in a field. In his excitement, he hid it again and sold everything he owned to get enough money to buy the whole field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant on the lookout for choice pearls. When he discovered a pearl of great value, he sold everything he owned and bought it. I'm going to finish out this. So they say to stop. I'm going to keep going about the kingdom. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a fishing net that was thrown into the water and caught fish of every kind. When the net was full, they dragged it in up on the shore and sat down and sorted the good fish into crates, but threw the bad ones away. There you go, another separation. That is the way it will be at the end of the world. The angels will come and separate the wicked people from the righteous, throwing the wicked into the fiery furnace where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Do you understand all these things? Yes, they said, we do. Then he added, every teacher of religious law who becomes a disciple in the kingdom of heaven is like a homeowner who brings from his storeroom new gems of truth as well as old. New gems of truth as well as old. So much to unpack there, but we won't. That's the daily reading. Man, bless you all as you hunger for knowing the Lord more. Things are so clear. Remember, the word itself is teaching. It's not complex. You don't have to have a theology degree. I mean, there are things we have to understand by original languages and the times it's written, I know, but it's not unperceivable. It's not inconceivable. It is knowable, and the Lord wants to be known. So may you know him more and richer today and every day as you continue to seek him. I bless you in your faith journey. And if you're wondering about all this, if you're not sure, I just ask you to open your heart to the Lord Jesus Christ. He really is God's love gift to all humanity for those that will believe on him. All right, y'all have a blessed day. We'll see you again. Bye-bye.